Hi, everyone, and welcome to Elevate Your Life on Dr. T TV. I'm Dr. T, and this is the place where emotionally sensitive people get the emotional tools that they need to succeed. With me today is a fabulous guest that I'm so excited to introduce you to. This is Simon Chadwick, and I'm going to read his bio, and then we're gonna kick things off. So, just put my glasses on here. So, Simon is South African born, British educated, and he's also an American citizen. He grew up as the son of a prominent anti-apartheid activist and lived in two totalitarian societies. A career CEO in Italy, in the UK, and the USA. He's the owner of a firm of management consultants and is intensely interested and concerned about politics and society in modern day America. Simon is a managing partner of Cambiar Consulting, a change management consulting firm he founded in 2004. Prior to this, he was the CEO of numerous market research companies in Europe and the US. Simon is deeply involved in the insights industry, and he was an inaugural chair of the Insights Association and its editor-in-chief of Research World. Oh, and is editor-in-chief of Research World. That sounds awesome. He and his colleagues are frequent contributors at conferences and seminars. He's also a prolific writer, having published over 400 articles on the research profession, and he's an author of For the People, a Citizen's Manifesto to Shaping Our Nation's Future. And this is an in-depth study of American politics and society. Simon is a fellow of the Market Research Society and a laureate of the Insights Association, and holds a master's in philosophy. Also holds a master's in philosophy, politics, and economics from Oxford University. Simon, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you very much indeed. That was quite a long bio.
It's very extensive and really, really interesting. And it's clear that you've accomplished a lot and that you're up to a lot, and that our audience can learn a whole lot from this conversation that we're going to have today. So this is wonderful. So what I first want to start out at is really having you share with us a bit about your journey as a person that really brought you to do these things that we were just looking at here in your bio, and to be doing the things that you're up to right now, and really what brought you to have the focus that is such a priority at this time.
So I think I would go back to the beginning of what you were talking about, that I was brought up in South Africa, partly at least. And my father was, he was a bishop in the Episcopal Church out there, Bishop Graham Chadwick. And his diocese extended for the whole of northwest South Africa. It was huge. He was in that position in the late 70s and early 80s when apartheid was, very much it was a very, very predominant political system in South Africa. And at the same time, the black youths were beginning to rebel. And he was working against the regime, which ultimately got him imprisoned and then exiled. And so I had inculcated in me, I guess, from his example and that of my mother as well, this interest in combating injustice. Because the society there at that time was so unjust and so brutal. And that then led me to an interest in politics and the way in which societies function. And so that's why I studied at university. And from there, sort of by happenstance, but also because I am people curious, I got into the research business because I actually love finding out what makes people tick.
No. I know.
Yeah. So, and then from there, I you know, as is always the case, I guess, when you function well, you get sort of promoted into management, which is a bit daft because you're not doing the stuff that really you like anymore.
You're just telling people what to do.
Yeah. And that brought me to the States 30 years ago.
30 years ago. Huh?
And I've been here in sort of like on the fence, if you like, for a long time. I didn't get citizenship for an age, but as I saw what was happening within the country, alarm bells started ringing within me. I could see parallels to my early life, and I could see the same types of political trickery and societal breakdown that had triggered that in South Africa, but also not only there, but if you go back in Europe in the 1930s, very, very similar kind of things going on in society. And so that's when I actually said, well, I'm not going to sit on the fence anymore. I'm actually going to take citizenship, and then started writing the book. And the book is really about, what is government? What is the contract between government and people?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So obviously such a rich existence that you've experienced, and things that a lot of people don't understand at its essence. And I love being an emotional scientist, and a psychologist. I mean, it's the same thing. I'm able to see a lot, very intuitive. I'm able to see microscopic patterns in humans and collectives and systems. And I love when you said, just the research became such an interest and priority for you. And I think this is so important for people to tune into that, because research to me is awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely right. And there's a reason that in my part of the sort of my small ecosystem is the reason why we call it insights is that, we are constantly gaining insight into people's behavior, what motivates them. We're constantly finding out new things or connecting dots, or, as you say, looking at patterns and trying to work out what they mean and what the narratives are behind people's behavior as well.
Simon, we're doing the same thing. Yeah, we're doing this. I couldn't have said it better. It really is. I mean, my calling, my purpose here in my lifetime is to awaken people to shift from a state of just sort of unconscious reactivity and sort of, being drawn over here by the media or whatever it is, to be just at the highest levels of self-awareness and awareness, so that they can see the matrix of their lives and the matrix, all the larger matrix as it extends, which is what it really is. And to be able to, without always having it to be reactive or upsetting all the time, but to see it from a scientific perspective first and foremost, like, this is what is occurring. These are the patterns that are running. These are the narratives that are running them. Right. And whether it's for your own self in a moment or at your own self and keeping track of yourself and what's going on and where you're heading off to, whether you meant to or not, or whether it's in your partnership, your family, your company, same thing, your different ecosystems, your overall ecosystem. So that instead of just being captive to these things and conditioned by the world, and like you said, you were talking about trickery, being conditioned by all kinds of bits of information that we're conditioned in, and to be able to, and with some amusement, just have that awareness so that one is truly guided by their their clear intentions, and that navigate them, the vision for their life and their family and their future in the world, and that navigate them. So does it sound like we're doing some similar things here?
Oh, very, very, very much so. And I think the interesting thing here is, right now at least, I believe that we are becoming less and less aware of ourselves and of others, particularly of others. And we are increasingly in these bubbles and increasingly talking to like-minded people, not to those outside the bubbles. But what makes that really interesting to me is that you could get, for example, two identical looking families. Say they're white, middle-aged, live in a Rust Belt town. Their factories, the final factories just closed down, economic distress. And you would think that their outlook on life would be identical as well. But it can be radically, radically different, because they have different narratives around them in terms of the people that they talk to or the people that brought them up or whatever. And it's really important to understand those. And when one thinks about how we want to function as a society, you have to try and allow for those narratives to be broadened.
That is so true. And I really, I agree with you. On everything. And one of the main points about how less self-aware we are, less aware we are. It's really fascinating. I was just flashing back to, I guess it would have been like the first year and a half of Facebook. And I was working as a psychologist and helping the most emotionally sensitive people who had gone through all of so many different types of addiction recovery, but people were not necessarily understanding the exact source issues for these people, which was that they were overstimulated all the time. They were sensitive, and so they were reactive, and they needed a particular kind of treatment. And something in me at the time, I saw the whole social media thing going, and I was on it to some small degree. I was interested to be able to say, oh, what's my friend doing, or what's my cousin doing? But something in me said, Tracy, you're going to stay off of that right now, and you're going to do such good work with these clients. And it was research also, Simon, to put in a particular type of methodology and to be able to really eliminate all of these emotional patterns. And just, I know you'll understand this. These were emotional reactive patterns and narratives all woven together that was causing the person to end up in these dramatic experiences that were overwhelming and chaotic, including their recovery system, right? Like, and so it was a real interesting time for me, because every part of me, the impulse to go on and see what people were doing and all of this was really something. And I just knew, like, once you sort of go in there and hang out there with hang out there very much, that you're in a matrix. You're ultimately in a matrix, and it's an agenda, and you're going to have exposure to so many things. And to use that word that you use, there's a lot of trickery going on. And if you don't have the top levels of self-awareness, then you will be on the hook there rather than be navigating and using it for your specific purposes. Yeah. Right. And so so once I chose to go into the, utilizing social media, it has been every day since then that whatever I do, I am going there with an intention of some sort. I'm monitoring myself to walk all the way through to the outcome, so I don't just go down rabbit holes everywhere and get into somebody's agenda, So how about you? How do you, you're looking at all this, and how do you, have what's your relationship with all of that?
So I am, I do use social media for social purposes, personal purposes. And I have to say, I really, I kind of drawn back a little bit, particularly during this whole election cycle, because you were seeing not a debate, you were just seeing screaming matches going on.
Right.
And so, I basically did use it to check in on my kids and
right,
behaving themselves. But on the other hand, for commercial purposes, for my work purposes, I'm all over the place, trying to use it to educate, I guess, and to start conversations.
Got it. Exactly. With instrumentation, right? Using it as
right. Absolutely. But what I've seen over these last 12, 18 months is that people have been using, and when I say people, I'm really talking about politicians, have been using their knowledge of narratives to instill fear.
Yeah.
And once you instill that fear, then you start tearing down the social fabric.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really damaging. It's not social media's fault per se. I mean, we could have a huge debate about that.
Right.
But it is the way in which very deliberately it has been manipulated. And that's causing considerable harm. And one of the things I think is really interesting is people talk in this country a lot about liberty.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. America is unique in the way in which people view life and view their role in life. It is not born to be societal. It's not born to be community-based.
Right.
It's much more individual-based, and it's wrapped in this word liberty. And when you go back to the roots of liberty, liberty is, it comes from libertas in Latin, which in one translation is freedom from fear.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And
that is at the core, I think, of what we're talking about today, because you can't have a functioning society if people are living in fear. If they're living in fear of being beaten up or losing their lives by being on the wrong street at the wrong time, or if they're living in fear of losing their job, or living in fear of a catastrophic illness which leaves them homeless. All of these things are recurrent undercurrents going through society today. And it's my contention that actually the contract with government is that, we'll pay our taxes and we'll obey reasonable laws, but you have to build a framework of security that enables us to live our lives without fear. And only then can we actually start to look at the wider narrative and actually interact with one another with more awareness and be looking out for each other rather than just for ourselves.
Simon, I'm so glad that we're talking about this. I couldn't agree more, and I love the parallels in our perspectives in the work that we're doing, the contribution that we're doing. I've been saying for years that we are in supposedly a free country, but I know very few people who actually feel free, right? That actually feel free, because when you are not emotionally free, you are not free, because you can go here and go there, and even though I can decide whatever I want to do, where I don't have to check with anybody for the most part, if you are not free from fear, or what I really consider, and fear is the good category, but I think about it as fear from reactivity to every kind of low frequency emotion, whether it is fear, guilt, shame, all of these low frequency emotions that are also utilized in these agendas, whether it's a company wanting you to buy their Labor Day sale, stuff from their Labor Day sale or whatever. So if you're not emotionally free and able to live in your own home of yourself, let alone your home and like you said, be able to navigate in life without that just hunkering down on you. And let alone if you're not free from that being a constant flow and stream being sent to you, right? You're not free.
Yeah,
you're not free, right? But in reality, and this is why my calling, and it's a very deep one, is for people to learn to have so much self-awareness that they are choosing their experience, they're choosing their focus, they're choosing their intention, and their attention goes to what it is that they want for themselves, for, again, the vision for their life and the reality that they want to create, which includes a good impact on other people. And this is critical because without freedom from all of this, people are getting very sick and very conditioned. We're just a society of people that are getting conditioned to be sick so that we'll do what people tell us to do.
Yeah, and it's it's really interesting. If we go right back to the beginnings of this country, it's the only country, to my knowledge, in the world in which one of the founding documents includes the word happiness.
I know.
Which is remarkable. But when you look around the world, and particularly the developed world, there are about 10 countries that have very secure, very stable societies. They pay a lot for it, but they receive a lot for it. And those societies are based in communalism, in society, in wider society. They are not only some of the richest countries in the world, they are also the happiest.
Yep. Isn't that amazing?
And that, it really is. And I think, there's a lot to learn. Part of what I'm trying to do in the book is not to shove other ideas down people's throats, but to say, look, it's okay to look out into the world and see what ideas appear to work and then bring them here and see if they will work.
Yes.
We don't have to be reinventing the wheel for ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
Particularly when we're reinventing it worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. And
so,
yeah. And this is, I always say to people, as we work with them as clients, we don't have people come into sessions and stuff we don't say, well, so what's going on? Like, what's wrong? And now we're going to fix it. Every session that we ever do with a client and every day on our team, we ask ourselves the question first and foremost, what's working? What's working? What's working well? Even if we're going to build on it. And we're never trying to build somebody's transformation or develop somebody's emotional capacity or our company off of all the problems. We're literally saying, okay, this is working this well. This is working that well. What's the outcome that we want? And let's keep approximating that. And it's the same quality here. I really feel like there's so much congruency to the way that we're thinking and helping other people think. Right? Because otherwise it's non-factual. It's like, no, not everything's wrong. Just some things need tweaking.
Yeah. And I think what I like about that approach, it's very, very similar to something that I use in my business called appreciative leadership.
I love it. Yeah.
Which is really based on the premise that if you constantly study things that are going wrong, things get worse.
They do.
If you study what's going right, they get better.
Yeah, and Simon, this is why I love emotional science, because it's really physics. Whatever your attention is on grows, and if it's on it's just physics, because energy and motion, you're giving something attention, and I love that because there's a whole school of the field of psychology is and I appreciate it and respect my peers. However, we're still in the dark ages where we believe that 15 years of hour-a-week therapy where we're going to talk about all the problems the person has is somehow going to change the way that they live and that they love and lead. And at the same time, it's not, because really we talk to people about what are all the things about you and about your life and about what you've done that have gone or are going well that we're going to improve upon. And I love that for our society as a whole, because otherwise people kind of feel burdened, like they go around going, oh, everything sucks in America, and then nobody wants to do anything, right? Rather than, let's see what we've got to build. We've got a lot to build on.
Yeah, we do have a lot to build on. And I think that's really, we've started to kind of push that into the background.
You're right.
And there is a tremendous amount of good going on in the country, in the world. What was interesting when the pandemic started was less about loss of freedom and all of this sort of stuff and the anger that was going around with it. It was much more, I don't know if this was the case in your neighborhood, but certainly in mine, it was much more people were looking out for each other.
I saw it too. Yeah.
And I remember my neighbors, just called us and said, we're going to the store. Is there anything you need? Yeah. We'd only met them about a month before. So there is innate goodness in the way in which we act, but that is being kind of shrouded at the moment by this perpetuation of fear. And I talk in the book about another book actually called The Dictator's Handbook, which is a really good book to read.
That sounds good.
And it is.
The handbook. Sorry, that is so good.
But basically, every authoritarian who wants to become a dictator has the same narrative.
Yeah.
The narrative is everything sucks.
Everything's
going to hell. It's all the fault of those others. Insert Mexicans, blacks, Jews, gays, whatever you want to do. And as you said, I alone can fix it. And so it's building on fear, and then fear leads to conspiracy theories, and conspiracy theories lead to violence. And so from that perspective, we cannot build a framework that's going to work.
Yeah.
Because you have to build a framework that is built on exactly the opposite, which is built on security.
Yeah.
And in that security, looking out for others. Because the key thing, if you look at society through the lens of Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah, I do. A lot.
Yeah?
I do.
Right.
A lot.
So, the base is physiological and physical security, and security through, finance and health and education and so on. But what are people longing for? They're longing to belong. And through belonging, to be able to do the best that they can in their lives.
Self-actualize
Is exactly. But that belonging is really, it's a two-edged sword. Because if you're in a secure society and you belong, you feel you belong, then you can flourish. But if you're in an insecure society and you feel you don't belong, what do? You go and find others to whom you can belong.
Right.
Be they a gang.
The outsiders, but gang,
Yeah. Or white supremacists or black gangs or whatever it may be. And that is corrosive. So belonging is really a two-edged sword, and we've got to create the conditions in which societal belonging is there, where everybody feels that they belong.
Simon, it's so true. And when you were also talking earlier about, the original setup, and then the way in which we now have a society that is fueled by a political system that is fueled by fear, and what we're needing inherent in all of these promises that came with the Constitution. And I've been saying this for a very long time. I did a TED talk all about this, that we need an emotional framework. We need an emotional constitution that would allow us to be a truly emotionally healthy and wealthy society that really has that gives the ability for everyone to be wealthy in the true sense of the word. Because when you have a strong emotional framework to operate from, you have a foundation, you're secure in yourself. And so it's really interesting what we're talking about to me, because when I work with people individually or as a couple, or my company will work with families and parts of their extended family system, right? Because it's never just the one identified patient it's always that there's a family systems issue. Yeah. And what we do is we not only teach a very simple framework of emotional framework called the method, which allows, and it's the method because it's that simple. I don't want it to be complicated. And it allows people to be in a state of consistent self-awareness that if they drop out of it, it's easy to come right back into to awareness. To be able to be aware of all you talked about, all the narratives and beliefs and programs that are kind of running through their system, be it the I don't have enough time program or nobody cares about me program or whatever these narratives are. And then to cut through all of that, to simply go into the most important question of all, which intervenes on all of this and says, what are my intentions? And whether those intentions are to go get yourself a delicious lunch and do that, or whether your intentions are to solve world hunger, that you stay connected to those intentions and that your actions only follow your intentions, not other people's, subversive intentions for you. Right?
Yeah. I think that's very wise. The other thing, as you were talking, that I was thinking about is that out of that, you then gain the ability, or you gain the freedom to be able to empathize.
Totally. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, but it's very interesting because those societies in which empathy is actually a foremost value are much, much, much more successful.
Absolutely.
What's going on in New Zealand right now? It's an empathetic society with empathetic leader, and they were intentional about the virus.
Right.
They dealt with it, but they dealt with it empathetically, and they are successful, and they are happy and wealthy.
It makes perfect sense, because here at Dr. Tracy Inc., we always say, our brand of empathy, because we think people get empathy confused with like, I'm going to have to somehow be super emotional and vulnerable and not rather than when you're self-aware and navigating out of intentions, whether it's you and your partner, your company, you are naturally creating an intentional connected matrix. And when any one of us operates out of intentions that come from our true self rather than the conditioning we've received, we generally are doing things that benefit everybody. And it's a beautiful, what I call an emotional strength effect, where it's a butterfly effect, where it's resonating. When you're self-aware, you're aware of other people and what they're struggling with, and you're not taking it personally and reacting. And this is the difference. I like to think there's a difference between living in connectivity, and which is the more of what the reality is, and living in reactivity. And why I even bring this up today too, Simon, is that you really struck me when you were talking about the importance of our government and our country having a framework that we can free of fear. And I really have considered this for a long time, an emotional framework that is running the country and that everybody can utilize. So, in case someone's over here on the Jungian psychology, and someone's over here on the Freudian, or someone's here on the the Apple programming, or what, from all these companies. When you have an emotional framework that's simple and people can utilize to make decisions, right? Then you say there's a big chaotic situation like the pandemic, and you go, okay, this is really overwhelming, especially if you're the president. It's very overwhelming, and yet I want to connect to what are the intentions, and say and do and act out only what the intentions are, minus all the reactivity, whether it's at that level or any collaboration where people can get kind of hung up and get reactive with each other in trying to solve things together. It really means a lot to me that you have that awareness that says we in our government, we need an emotional framework too.
We do. We actually do. And I think it's very easy to build the wrong emotional framework, which I think we have done.
We have done.
And it's not as easy to build a framework that is accentuating the positive.
Yeah.
But as you say, if we had such a framework at the beginning of this crisis,
of course,
we would have dealt with this crisis so much faster, so much more effectively.
That's right.
It beggars belief that you have to say to some people, look, we're asking you to wear a mask to protect others.
Yeah.
And the response is, I don't give a shit about others.
Right.
That is something that, Europeans turning and looking at the States just cannot understand.
Well, and it's ghastly, and yet, as an emotional scientist watching, I'm able to see, as I said, microscopic patterns in people, let alone when somebody is as obvious as Donald Trump. It's like he's showing you the textbook of all kinds of emotional programming, and that he's been in, by the way, that was given to him. And quite simply, the role of a visionary who can then allow other people to tactically carry out that vision and keep the whole country focused on the vision rather than on all the reacting and the fear. We know that this is what was needed. And so it's been really something to watch. My last year when I gave a TED Talk saying, we're in a worldwide emotional crisis. We don't have the right framework, and it's probably more accurate to say America is in an American emotional crisis. We were unprepared emotionally for this, and this from the top down, and then we have these results. And I'm really curious. So you've been watching all of this, obviously, tracking this, including the election and this continuous reactive cycle that is going on. And what is it that you want us to know about what you're seeing?
Well, I think, everything we've been talking about is really evident in the reactions to the election. The very fact that 70% of a certain population do not believe in the results is just... It's not because they're stupid people. It's not because they're evil or mean people. It is that they are in a state of reaction that has been fed by fear-mongering, by otherizing. It's those others, the very words that are used these days, like libtard and covidiot and all of these sorts of things are all about shaming or demeaning other people who don't agree with you. And so there has ceased to be dialogue. And there are some very, very, very bad operators in media who are very happy to play on all of this. And, I think, if there's one person that I would like to see put behind bars, it's Rupert Murdoch.
Oh my God.
Uh,
Yeah, I'll sign on that one too. I'll sign on. I will co-sign, as they say. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's all he's done all his career
No.
is stoke fears and stoke reactions and resentments and God knows what.
And make billions, if not some. Maybe we're in the trillions at this point, but making
right.
Yeah.
So we are in a collective funk, and I think what is interesting to me is we don't have. I think we will return to some sort of normality of boredom, which it would be so nice.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I think back nostalgically, to I don't even know, whatever Obama's doing, I didn't need to pay. He did his job and I wasn't need to pay attention because I could do, he did his job, I did mine.
Wouldn't it be nice to go throughout an entire day without hearing anything about the president?
I know.
We're
all on the ride.
Yeah. And so there will be some return to that, but then I think we are desperate for a visionary. Yeah. I really think we are desperate. I go back. You may or may not sort of agree about Kennedy, but the one thing that he did do was he was very intentional in his vision. And when he stood up and said, we're going to the moon by the end of the decade, it was an impossibility, yet we did it.
Yeah.
And that was very, very clever because he focused the whole country on its own innovative side.
Yeah.
And its daring side.
I love this.
And so we need somebody like that, and whether it's going to be a Kamala Harris or whether it's going to be somebody else we haven't even thought about yet, that's probably the only way we're going to heal. But there have to be structural elements in there that are put into place in order to provide that framework of security. There has to be structural elements in healthcare, in education,
of course,
in the economy, Social Security, all of these things. And that's going back to the beginning of the conversation. That is where we can actually learn from what others have done successfully.
Simon, I am so congruent with this. As you're talking, you're describing the culture and the nuts and bolts of what I do in my company, and our entire process of helping emotionally sensitive people who tend to be the most reactive, right? They're the most deepest, purposeful people. So often they have the biggest hearts. These are the people that are in the helping professions. These are the people that they're the creative artists, and they're really deeply sensitive. And this is a superpower. But on the other hand, it makes them that much more subject to all of the negative frequencies and messages, and they get bombarded and burdened, and their identity structures go into this like negative paradigm, right? Everything sucks, and it's a reaction pattern always. Like it's a very intense, burdensome life that many of them can feel. Even though they've got one of the most important things that we need in this country is we need those empathetic skills to be utilized in a productive way, not in a way where you're constantly upset because your girlfriend didn't call you, back or something, but in a way that is like, I've got a lot of emotional energy that can be utilized in the service of our society. And thinking about all of that emotional sensitivity and what we call absorb and get conditioned for, our entire recovery process for people, which is really a reconditioning process, right? The focus of all things over and over, probably to ad nauseum, but it works, is the vision for this person's life. And when they want to go back and say, but 5 years ago when my husband did this, it's like, and tell me again what the vision of your life is. What do you want to create? And a person, Simon, will start out with some some of the lower levels of like, well, I want to be happy and I want to have fun and I want to feel good. I just want to not feel bad. And by the time we've just continued on, this is like the moon landing. They're like, well, if I'm really honest, I want to do X and Y, and everybody, this is the beauty of it. Everyone, Simon, wants to make a big contribution to society. Every single time when I get underneath all the fear and all the limiting beliefs, it'll be anything from, I want to create a cartoon that teaches kids all about health from the age of 3 on. It's innovations. It's everything. Everyone they're here to bring a contribution, but when they're stuck in the muck with all of that reactivity and the belief systems that are in this infrastructure, it's so challenging. So to the point, your vision is what the best emotional framework is, because when anyone focuses on a vision, you can just feel yourself. Your physiology changes. You start to get more inspired. Then you start going, not only are we going to go to the moon, but we're going to go to Mars too. And we're going to circle the solar system. And so I love what we're talking about today, because otherwise people think getting help for their emotions is some awful thing. And we're talking about changing from a reactive constitution to a visionary one. Yeah,
I think that's right. And it applies in the microcosm on the individual basis, and it applies on the macrocosm to society as a whole.
It does.
It's exactly the same thing.
It does. Imagine, Simon, if every time somebody was talking, any of us were talking with somebody, or any person in the equation is saying, well, this is terrible and that's it, and somebody just checks it and says, but so let me know, what are you wanting? What's your intention? And every one of us could be cued out of that reactivity to say, whatever it might be, I want this. I want my children to have a great education. I want to go on a vacation. I want to, write in a letter of support to a congressman, or it could be anything, but there is so much energy wasted in this reactivity.
Yeah. Right? It's burning energy. It's not producing energy.
It's a drain. It's a big drain.
It really is. Yeah. And I think the more, when in the foreword to my book, I say this is not, even though it's called a manifesto, it's not the be and end all answers. It's not the silver bullets. It's to start a conversation, and that is what we need to have more and more and more in this society is a conversation.
Right.
And a conversation on the sort of basis that you're talking about, which is, okay, everything may suck, but what do you want to happen? What do you want to do about it?
Yeah.
Where would you like to go and find information to allow you to do something about it? And so by starting that conversation, even, the starfish theory,
I know,
throwing a starfish into the sea. Maybe I'm throwing one starfish into the sea, but at least it's a start.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, like what you're doing. You're trying to get that butterfly effect out there.
Totally.
And that's what I'm doing as well.
Because it is not even that small of an effect. If we were to really trace, because this is the scientist in me, if we were to really trace our impact, whether we're in the worst moment of our life, each one of us is a powerful creator and when we're in reactivity, we will create chaos. And it passes from you to your husband to the people at work because he's grumpy and their kids at home. And when we are in an intentional connected state, where what I call an elevated state of being, where your body feels good, you're in focus, whether it's completing an email that's going to solve a problem for somebody or whatever it is, when you actually get conditioned to have your auto response be intention. And even if it's like, whoops, I went over here on accident and I'm going to bring myself back to the thing that is the outcome for this client or this company or whatever, whoever you're engaging with, or your son or daughter. When you condition that over and over and over again, you can literally exist as in an intentional state, just the same way we've all been conditioned to live in a reactive state, whether people realize that reactivity has many shapes and forms. It's not just somebody being obviously upset. Reactivity is just being unconscious and not having an awareness for what your outcomes are.
Yeah. And I think, if I were to sort of put that into the context of what I do, what my father did, there was always something every single day that was done intentionally to help another person.
No.
Even if it was only one thing. And I think that's because that does then grow. That feeds into them. They do the same. And it's through that we actually, I'm sorry to go religious on you, but
go there.
It is no coincidence that the major religions of the world are all based around how we treat each other.
It's service, how we serve. Yeah.
How we serve.
Yeah.
And whether you believe in a religion or not, you can argue it as a tenet of faith, or you can argue that, the people who wrote those original documents were actually trying to socially engineer. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They are built around how we serve, how we act in terms of other people.
They are.
And if we can't get back to that, then we really have a problem. But I think, we can get back to it, but we've been in an accident. We're in the ICU right now.
Right.
But,
we are, and we're headed for recovery in a lot of levels, and my team and I have been prepping for this. We've been doing but really at the transfer of power, I kid you not, I feel like the atmosphere is going to shift in a majorly good way. But I also feel like, just like when soldiers have been in battle and they're on their tour, until that is wrapped up, there's a certain heightened level of trauma that you're in. So you may be used to it and okay-ish, but when that battle is over, there is an entire thing that there's a coming down of that, and truly going, oh my God, that trauma really happened, and now it's like picking up the pieces and repackaging them for yourself so that you can go on and start to build not just our society, but we're not just building our society, we're building ourselves back up again from an emotional level.
There's going to be a little bit of PTSD.
It's major, and a kind that a kind that we don't necessarily have a lot of research for at this level, because we have similar things that have happened in the world, but this is a really, really interesting time, obviously. And what you were saying about the major religions. This is the other thing that I'm really excited for our audience to keep recognizing, is that when you when you emotionally choose to emotionally grow and evolve and to become self-aware, you can call it whatever you want. When you choose to become engaged in life and in the driver's seat instead of being a passenger just drinking somebody's Kool-Aid, and you have this awakening, you learn the ability to be of service to yourself and others at the same time, because when you're serving people, you are the people and you're engaged in it. So I think sometimes people get confused, because there was a long era of sacrificial martyrdom, kind of like throw myself on the fire for my family, and I'm miserable. And then there became the age of narcissism, where it's all about me and I can only take care of myself, but I still don't want anybody to call me selfish. And what I've been doing for over a decade is helping people understand that the self-awareness for yourself is awareness for other people.
Right.
And when you're in service to outcomes and intentions, you're in service to everybody. That includes you. right? And being in service is the greatest existence that there is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Having seen it in many different manifestations, many different people, people that have had huge effects, but probably are completely unknown.
Yeah.
It's awe-inspiring.
It is awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
Simon, before we wrap up, a couple more things today. Just from everything that you are seeing with, the continuation of the tantrum, and the continuation of just the tinkering, all, how many weeks are we now out of the election or from the election, but we're still obviously in it. We're in it according to some. With everything that you're seeing, what's your sense of what you believe is going to go down all the way through this transfer of power, or anything else that you can really provide as awareness that can allow all of us to be to just know what's what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't possess a crystal ball in as much as we're dealing with actors here who are hugely unpredictable. I mean, they're predictably unpredictable.
I get that.
Yeah. So I think there's eventually the transfer is going to take place, as it should do, on January the 20th. And I think, as you say, there's going to be PTSD after that. I think there's going to be a lot of anger on one side, and I think there is the potential for violence.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're seeing that. But ultimately, I'm hoping that the fact that all these dire predictions and conspiracy theories that are going around will not come true.
Yeah.
Will gradually lead to a diffusing of the negativity that's going on right now. That
mechanism. Yeah.
But it's going to take time, and we're going to have to be patient. And it's not going to be easy, but we're going to have to be patient.
And with that said, I would again just invite everyone, and wherever you stand on any of this and whatever you've been experiencing or fearing or looking forward to, or whatever frustrations any of you might have, that what cuts through of that always is to ask yourself on a deeper level, what is your vision? What do you want for not just you, but this is a reality that you're creating, right? This is a life that you're creating. And when you create a reality for yourself, other people are in that reality too. And when they're creating one, you're in their reality, and better off to create them together. So think about what we all want to create together, and how we'd really like it to be. And I really encourage everyone that no matter what negative stuff comes up, that you just keep bringing it back there, because this is every day I just keep picturing our society the way I want us to all be. Everything I want people to be able to do, especially, right, to be self-aware and out of reactivity and in connectivity with each other, and solving problems together, and really co-creating something beautiful together that we're all capable of. That's my sense of it.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said.
Simon, let us know about how we can get the book, where we can find you, and how we should follow you, and all of these things, so we can keep up and keep track of what it is that you're doing in the world.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. So the book is called For the People, A Citizen's Manifesto to Shaping Our Nation's Future. You can get it on Amazon, and you can get it at bnn.com. It's in its second edition now, so it's been brought a little bit up to date through the pandemic. You can go to simonchadwick.us, and you can read the first 3 chapters for free there.
Awesome.
As well as a series of articles built around the book. And you can follow me on Facebook at Simon Chadwick, and Twitter at Simon Chadwick, and LinkedIn.
Got it.
So I'd be happy to see people in any of those
awesome.
arenas.
I'm definitely going to be keeping track of all this with you, Simon. And I just had a question for you about the book. Oh, because I'm so intrigued by the Dictator's Handbook.
Yes.
Wait, I hope that doesn't mean something about me, but I'm really interested because I love the irony of this here. But it's really important because I can already picture the profile that you're describing.
Yeah, and if you don't want to read that whole book, I have a chapter in this book that actually summarizes.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, excellent. Now, Simon, our last question here is a question that I ask everyone that comes onto the show. And this is really a question about your big message to people, your legacy message to people. So, thinking about all the things you've experienced in life, what you know, what you care about, and what your vision is, and what it is that you want people to be able to have as knowledge or wisdom or some sort of a directive, what would that message be? And let's take it another level. If this was the last message that you got to leave and this was going to carry on through the generations and resonate forward, what would that be?
I think I go back to if I take your theme of intention and I look at it in terms of how can we build a more secure society, how can we absent ourselves from fear, how can we help others to do that, and even to the point that we put ourselves in danger to do that. Uh-huh. So if I go back to the example of my father, he didn't have to be fighting a totalitarian state at the risk of his life, but he did, because his intention was to eradicate the injustice that was going on there. And I would say to people, if this was my last message, if this was my legacy, intentionally build safety for others into your life, and listen and empathize. Every day, go and listen or empathize with somebody new that is going through something that you don't experience, and then use that to build more security into your society.
Simon, I love that. This has just been such a lovely conversation with you.
I've enjoyed it.
I really appreciate your contribution and getting to collaborate with you. It feels fabulous, and I'm so glad that our audience gets to have these shared perspectives. And I just want to invite all of you that have watched today to just to continue to open up your perspective and continue, to take Simon's words and recommendations and allow these perspectives to just come into your heart and your mind for consideration and application. And because we hear our intention for you is to build the most elevated life for yourself. And that means for everybody. So thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Tracy.